Okay, this is meditation, third session, and we're starting again. So last week we were talking about mostly identity. We were trying to differentiate between the true self, the true identity, the deeper self, and the ego self. You know, the self that is the one that is connected to the voice that's constantly talking in our head. So we're trying to get those two things separated. What we want to do is talk today about how we build that awareness and the awareness of the true self. That is going to be offline and online, the two basic ways that we can do this. They work hand in glove, but we want to be able to practice them. So we're going to be giving techniques and exercises to practice both. Offline is meditation, centering prayer. It's whatever you do as you move into your prayer closet. When you get into seclusion, go offline from the rest of your life and actually spend dedicated time just practicing this technique of stepping away from all the thoughts in your head. So we've already been practicing the follow the breath technique. We're going to start looking at centering prayer the next couple of sessions. And those are the main two techniques we're going to talk about. But there's lots of other ones. And we'll talk about the various varieties. But offline, okay, dedicated time. Online is throughout all of the moments of your life, kind of between the raindrops of whatever else is happening in your life. This is primarily going to be mindfulness. So mindfulness, practicing presence is going to be something that you're doing all through the day. Now, the techniques that you use and learn offline are the ones that you're going to be using online. A lot of the same things. So as you develop whatever is your technique for stepping away from your thoughts, whether it's coming back to breath, whether it's saying your sacred word in a centering prayer technique, that would be a way that you can also, during the day, come back. And the idea is to keep coming back to thinking about only the thought that is fueling what you're doing at the moment. Right? How often are your thoughts and your actions not the same thing? Your mind has wandered off track. We want to bring it back on again. And so the two are going to work together. The goal here is to bring awareness to all your moments. And we've talked about this. I know that there are times when your head needs to go up into the clouds. You need to be able to think abstractly, have your mind be unconstrained so that you can plan for a future and you can learn from the past and do all these things. But then we want to come back down, and at least 51% of the time, but more than that really, we want to be living our life on the ground. We want to be living our life with awareness. These are the two parts of that to really bring that together. So the byproduct is here, if you take a look at 4D, is going to be remembrance, healing, freedom from fear, trauma, past emotional programs. Let's break those down a little bit because the goals here are going to be really important. Thomas Keating does a really good job in Invitation to Love. If you really are a bookie and you want to read through, it's a little dense, but he talks about the psychological effects of centering prayer. Are you guys missing something? What are you missing?
We just got
We have 7, 8, 9.
You didn't bring your materials from last time?
It's in a car.
Okay. Take each one of those and then leave the rest on the table in case a few other people need it. Okay. That's page 1 of the outline. Okay. Keating talks a lot about the psychological effects, and what he's talking about is that, and we've talked about this before, in your childhood, in your early adulthood, and as you're going through trauma, you're building emotional programs for happiness. It's those programs that are going to take you through. They are now running the bus. They're driving the bus, so to speak. We don't even realize how these programs are affecting our choices, our attitudes, and our behavior, our thought processes. A regular practice of meditation and centering prayer is kind of like being on the psychoanalyst couch, where they're regressing you and taking you back. Even kind of just simultaneously with what you're doing and spontaneously, thoughts are going to come up, remembering past events. I remember it was so weird as I was going through this myself. I would remember things that I forgot. It wasn't just remembering these incidents from the past. I was remembering also how they connected to current behavior now. It's like a bright line connected the two. And it was just like these lights would go on in my head. It's like, oh my gosh. I'd forgotten about that and how it's affecting me now and the choices and the attitudes that I have. It's almost as if doing this over time thins out the barrier between the subconscious and the conscious, makes it permeable, and things start to bubble up. You know, kind of like those mud pits at Yellowstone. Stuff comes up. You know, is there a visual for you? You know, and as they come up, they allow you to be able to see them for what they are in real time and start letting them go. The awareness allows you to practice the opposite action. I know why I'm being triggered. It makes sense to me, and now I have that space between stimulus and response that allows me to choose something different. This regular practice of centering prayer, mindfulness, starts to bring all that to bear in an organic way. It's amazing how this will happen. And Thomas Keating did a great job of putting this all together in a logical way of how this is going through. The ultimate goal is this freedom to actually be yourself, uncolored by all of this emotional programming from the past, all the traumas of the past. You are actually present enough to be yourself, to be open enough, and to choose and make the best choices for everyone who's going to be affected by your decision. It's an amazing thing. Take a look at the clover leaf that I gave you. I've relatively recently started to get introduced to DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. And take a look at these 4 clover leaves. The dialectical part, the word there is coming, means the acting through opposing forces, or the moving through opposing forces. And the opposing forces here are acceptance and change. DBT comes out of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And they were noticing that CBT didn't work for really difficult mental illnesses, especially like borderline personality disorder. And so one therapist who actually went through this herself and into an Asian country and was working on Buddhist techniques, saw how the two married together. And so what was missing in cognitive behavioral therapy, which is all focused on change and was blowing the people out, who are so regimented into change, they didn't see how there was any acceptance of who they were at the time. So it was almost like it completely validated who they were in this headlong rush to change. She realizes that the two had to be balanced between acceptance and change. She brought all of her Buddhist meditational and mindfulness techniques to bear into a more balanced therapy now called DBT. And if you look, these are called the DBT skills. And these 4 are the skills that need to be established in a person's life as they move forward. 2 are based in acceptance, 2 are based in change. But as you just read through these, man, you don't need borderline personality disorder to need this stuff. I mean, this is just a basic for life. Mindfulness on the acceptance side, being aware of the present moment without judgment. Distress tolerance, managing a crisis without worsening the situation, accepting reality as it is. Wow, wouldn't that be a concept, huh? And so as I started to get introduced to DBT, I realized we've been doing this for years from a spiritual point of view, but we didn't have this overlay that makes it a lot crisper and a lot cleaner. And it's helping me to be able to just recommunicate this and to make it much more intentional as we go through it. And then on the change side, emotional regulation, understanding and reducing vulnerability to emotions and changing emotions. Go through your day. How often are you being pulled around by the nose by your emotions, and you're changing emotions and being triggered? I mean, to be able to regulate those by being present to them, just like we talked about, to be aware of when you're being triggered, to know why it triggers you, because that has bubbled up into your consciousness, and to be able to make a different choice in real time. Interpersonal effectiveness, getting needs met, maintaining relationships, increasing self-respect in relationships. These are the goals, these are the benefits of a contemplative lifestyle, of moving in these directions. And you can see now that this is an evidence-based model that is working in exactly the same area. A lot of these things are going to come just naturally and organically as you move through, but understanding them will also just give a leg up to the process. But this is all really important stuff. This is what we're after as we move through. Obviously, we're talking now in a psychological and even a physical realm, but this is all intensely spiritual as well. As you bring the notion of your spirituality to bear on what you're doing. If you, as a theist, understand that what we're doing when we clear our minds is we are just moving spirit to spirit into connection with God, then that's going to be the sensibility with which you do this. If you're doing it strictly from a psychological point of view, then that's what you're going to experience there, for health reasons or whatever. But we're going to be stacking these layers of meaning and significance onto what we're doing, and it becomes a really beautiful, beautiful process. Okay? Any questions about any of that? Let's see. Developing awareness. I wanted to do a quick consciousness exercise with you. And here's what we're going to do. You're going to close your eyes, and without the aid of anything, you can't count fingers or toes or do anything. I want you to think of a word. It can be any word, maybe not any word that's emotionally loaded for yourself, but just think of a word. And what you're going to do is you are going to repeat this word exactly 40 times, just in your mind, with your eyes closed. And you can use any interior technique, but don't use your fingers, don't use your toes, and don't use anything else to count with. And if you start and you lose count, then start back over again until you can get all the way to 40. Go. Okay. Open your eyes if you're done. Okay, looks like we're all done. Anyone want to share how you did it? Did everybody do it, first of all? Everybody got to 40? You know you got to 40? How'd you do it?
I said the number and I pictured the number in my mind's eye. Just went through the numbers.
Counting.
So were you actually counting, though?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, you said don't use your fingers or toes or
Yeah, and don't count.
tapping on the floor.
Like were you saying 1 hippopotamus, 2 hippopotamus, 3 hippopotamus?
The
Or?
word was diamond.
Okay.
And I think I actually, more than said the number, I pictured the number.
Okay.
Picture a number 1.
How did you know when you got to 40?
How did I know?
Yeah.
Well, I had to say the numbers.
Oh, you're saying the numbers too?
Yeah.
Then you were cheating.
Bad.
Okay. All right. Judy?
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
But I was saying the word and picturing the number.
Yeah.
All right. That's a modified cheat, but we'll take that.
I didn't count the number.
My word
I
was
just
daisy,
pictured it.
Okay, Daisy.
and I pictured daisies.
You actually pictured
I
them?
pictured daisies, and then I had a rhythm
And I would say Daisy, 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 Daisy. So I just
5 intervals.
kept track of
So
it.
groups of 5?
Intervals of 5.
Intervals of 5.
Oh, okay.
That's how I do
Is
it.
that okay? Did I cheat?
She did not cheat.
I did
That's
cheat.
Something similar.
I did it.
I used these visual cues
Uh-huh.
on my
Third time through, I
font
made
sign,
it.
and I put, my board was still, and I said still, and I pictured putting them in those boxes.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. Still. Did anyone have to start over again?
Yeah.
You
I made
said
it through the 3rd time.
third time. Okay.
Hold it down, I'm still counting.
Okay, you can see, and it's so interesting. Every time we do this, some people have done color coding, where they had like colors, bars of colors, and they could picture the word up in the color. There's all different ways of doing this. But here's the question. Obviously, your mind was involved in whatever technique you used to get to 40. Your conscious mind was thinking that. What was it that told you when you were done that the task was complete? Intuition. That can be a word for it, huh? But here, and I hope you can get this subtle nuance to this, is that there is what is traditionally sometimes called a watcher, or the knower, that there is a deeper you that is watching and is overseeing this egoic mind that is doing all the calculating. Your egoic mind is like a computer. It's a calculator. It assesses things. It judges things. It makes distinctions. It does all the stuff that basically Jesus tells us not to do. Don't judge, don't categorize, don't separate, don't objectify. But that's exactly what the mind, the egoic mind, does. It needs to be able to do that. We need to be able to do that in order to live and to run commerce and families and do other things that we do. But there is a deeper us that is watching that and is telling us when the task is complete and can tell us when to disengage from that and do something different. So there's a deeper us. That is the you that is going to be addressed when we are engaged in meditation and centering prayer techniques. And so just hopefully that was a little bit of an exercise to be able to show you, yes, there is that difference, and you access it all the time without knowing. What we want to do is to do it consciously, to consciously let go of the calculating mind, the monkey chattering in the tree, so that we can just sit with. But here's the thing, as soon as you think about that deeper you, you're back into the egoic mind. It can't be thought about. You can't put a name to it, because as soon as you do, you've left the building again. If that makes any sense to you. Yeah, Jim.
I feel like, so what I did in counting the numbers almost feels like the trouble I'm having meditating. I feel like my mind, when I sit down to meditate, it's like my mind is like, okay, time to think, time to talk. I'm talking about stuff that there is really another person present. I mean, it's like, wow. And that almost reminds me of that exercise that we just did, like needing to, well, I don't need to talk, but I did, for counting the words.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I meditated last year using a mantra, and it seemed to go easier. There was less chatter, but then I'm concentrating on the mantra and not. I'm picturing a choppy ocean, and I'm trying to get below the turbulence, and I'm trying to visualize myself really like sitting at the bottom of the pool, and just, of course, breathing, but just sitting quiet below all the chatter.
That's actually a very cool image. Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great image. Love that. And that's the thing. There's for some of us, this is going to be a lot harder than for others. Now, if you have such an overactive mind that it's really, really difficult, you may need to do something that are akin to training wheels on the bike for a while. Maybe you need guided imagery. You put on the headphones and you've got some sort of bed of music or environmental sounds, and there's a voice that is talking to you and guiding you through some imagery. that might be good. The mantra, this continuous repetition. The ancient Christians had what they call the Jesus prayer. You know, Kyrie eleison in Greek literally just means Lord have mercy. They would say it hundreds of times a day until it was so internalized, the way they put it was, instead of saying the prayer was saying them. You know, so it became something that was bringing them back and focusing them on the moment, and the constant repetition finally just got so deep that they learned the presence through, and so basically you could let go of the training wheels after a time. Once the prayer is saying you're not consciously saying the words anymore, but they are still present to you. So there could be some, what do you think prayer beads are all about? You know, the rosary, it's giving your brain this completely, you know, just repetitious task to do. You just count the beads and keep saying the prayers. Same idea. You're giving that chattering mind something to do. You're giving the monkey brain a banana, and he goes off and eats it. And so there are these other techniques that you can use. A walking meditation, you know, that's another way for people who are pretty hyperactive. You know, you just get your body going in some kind of slow meditative circuit, or you walk around the block, but it's late at night or early morning when there's not a lot of cross traffic and distractions. That can be another really good and legit way to start getting into this mode, and then eventually you can let more and more of the techniques go until you can just sit and be. Yeah.
A couple of thoughts popped into my head. Meditation guru I was having a conversation with, he told me one thing, when we first start a practice, there's no wrong way to meditate. So just as you're developing the discipline of sitting for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, just don't worry about doing it right, because that traps us in this goal-oriented mindset that keeps us in that loop, essentially, you're talking about. And I wanted to respond to what Jim just said. The same guy is talking about trying to externalize that voice. So like the voice that's always in our head, if we can think of that person as somebody sitting next to us, it might help us to shift our relationship with that voice. And I'd experienced something going up to San Luis Obispo a couple of weeks ago. I wanted to grab a gift for one of my buddies I was staying with. And I got to the place too late to pick up the gift, and I was a little perturbed by that. And the whole way up, I'm driving, this voice keeps nagging me about this stupid gift. And I'm more and more aware of that voice just kind of ruining the trip, and I'm just trying to, okay, I'm good, let it go. But I think, I might be wrong here, but I think the me that's catching that voice is that deeper me that you're describing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of learning how to catch that voice is, like when you were meditating offline and you kept noticing that voice like another person in the room, is that we can bring that online and catch that voice in the course of our day. Because my voice was, like I had nothing to think about on the drive up there for 5 hours. So the voice was there. And even after I got there, I'm in the midst of sitting and I'm enjoying my interaction, and that thought popped into my head, and I can feel a disconnection like just happened in the moment, you know. And it's like, there you are again. You know? And this guy was saying, like, if you had somebody sitting next to you that kept nagging you about this one thing 20 times on this trip, you would have punched that person in the face, you know.
ACA calls that your critical parent.
Exactly.
But William is exactly right. You know, that you that told you got to 40 and you could open your eyes and you're done is the same you that's going to be telling you, I am obsessively thinking this thought. But it won't be in words. It'll just be in awareness. As soon as you put it into words, now that's your egoic mind taking over again. But that awareness, oh, okay. Haven't you ever been aware of something without actually thinking about it? You know? I'm aware that my foot is on the floor, but until I said it and brought my attention to it, I wasn't actually thinking about it. This is the way that it's going to be. Ever get a song stuck in your head? and it's going and going and going. Can you turn it off? Sometimes it's really hard to do. I'll sit down to my centering prayer in the morning, and I'll have, sometimes it's not even a song, it's just one 2-bar lick that's going over and over and over, a guitar pattern or something. It's really interesting. I got to the point now where I can just turn off the band. And it'll come back if I'm not aware of it, and then I can just shut it down. It's almost like turning down the volume where it just goes away. There was a baseball movie, and it was about a pitcher, and he'd be going up to the pitch, and here's the 50,000 screaming people and the pressure and the guys on base, all the things that you have to think about when you're on the mound, and he would interiorly say, clear the mechanism. And the way that the movie would play it is that the sound would go down to nothing, and everything would go out of focus except a tunnel right to the catcher's mitt. And that was all that he was aware of at that moment. Or is that great scene in Amadeus? Remember the movie Amadeus with Mozart? And he's in the middle of this screaming fight between his wife and his father-in-law or father, and they're going at it, and he's slowly backing out of the room, going into the next room where he has all his music laid out on the billiard table, and you just hear their voices fading out and the music coming up, and then he's just engulfed in the music. And it's like that. It's like we can just silence. We can step away. There'll be an awareness of things. It's not that your mind goes completely silent. You're still aware of where you're sitting. You're aware of your space. You're aware of air temperature and sounds, but you're not choosing to focus on any one of them, and you just stay in that place of choiceless awareness. So yeah, it's a really interesting sensation, and it may be a little different than you're expecting it to be as you're just moving into the practice. But what William said is perfect. There's no wrong way to do it. There can be results that you don't want, and you can course correct, but any technique can work. And so don't worry about the technique, and don't judge the technique. Choose one, try it, see how it does that day. And if it didn't work so well, maybe try it again a couple of times before you abandon it and say, okay, that was not for me, and try another one. It's whatever works. And I know Bill Fellers was saying that when he tried a sacred word, in centering prayer, you'll choose a sacred word. When he tried something religious, love, hope, Jesus, it wasn't working so well with him. He was trying to do this out when he took a hike. It turned out that the word cactus worked just fine. He saw a cactus became his sacred word, and that just took him right where he needed to go. And he said it was the weirdest thing. So, think about it. Don't make it over religious. Don't overthink this thing. That's another important point. I wanted to just read this Knowing the Knower handout with you. How are we doing? See if we can put this finer point on the knower. In meditation, we come in contact with self, God's spirit, or our true identity. By regular practice of meditation, slowly we start knowing this self in its various facets. We start recognizing ourselves distinctively from our body and mind. Now, many of you may ask, okay, now I realize that I'm separate from my body and mind. In reality, I am consciousness, which is part of some supreme consciousness. Well, so what? What's the big deal in it? Is this going to help me in some way in coping with my already stressed life? Here's the answer. The very process of connecting with God's Spirit, realizing this self through meditation, brings significant outcomes. To be centered makes us calm, provides us a feeling of peace, and gives us a sense of bliss. Moreover, there comes a dramatic change in the way we perceive this world, a positive change in our perspective. A feeling of blissful calm and a unique joy comes through it. Moreover, these positive outcomes do not depend upon any external circumstances, since the sense of bliss does not depend on any external factor. It is completely independent and arises unconditionally from within. Now, this doesn't mean that every time you do this, you're going to feel euphoric, that, even though it's put this way. But there will be the sense when you do successfully kind of move into this centered place, there will be a feeling of calm. There will be at least where all the wolves are at bay for this moment. You're still aware that they're there, but you just don't care for the moment. It's kind of like that. In the course of any single day, we are subjected to numerous sensory inputs, and our mind is constantly engaged in a never-ending process of thinking. We read the newspaper, study books, write reports, engage in conversation and meetings, solve problems, and all these activities result in a constant mental commentary inside us. Seldom or never our mind gets any chance to be still and calm. However, sometimes as if by accident, most of us attain a state of thought-free mind. If you have relaxed, looking at a beautiful sunset, allowing your thoughts to quiet down, this is close to meditation. If you have been reading a book for a while and then put it down to take a break and just sit there quietly and peacefully for a few minutes without thinking, this is also close to meditation. In these momentary incidents, when our mind is not reflexively engaged in any thought, when we are just present in the moment, we come close to this self, or to say it in other words, we get centered in ourself and God's presence. And this contact brings peace. Though only for a moment, our minds become peaceful, calm, and focused. Meditation is a systematic way to achieve the above-mentioned accidental or occasional encounters in order to get its benefits on a permanent basis. I hope by now it should be clear to you what meditation is. Let me summarize all this by giving this simple definition. Meditation is a state of choiceless awareness. Meditation is a state of no mind. The state of awareness when mind ceases to exist is meditation. Mind ceases to exist. That's an interesting way to put it. Whenever you are relaxed, when your mind is quiet and observant, when you are not reflexively engaged in any thought, you are meditating. Meditation is not thinking about anything. It is not contemplation in the sense of contemplating on something. And that's confusing because we use the word contemplative and contemplation in the opposite way that they're using it here. It's not concentration. In fact, it's actually a process of thought removal. Okay? All right. Now what we want to do is get into the basics. Do you have the Vipassana basics handout? Did we not have any more of those? Vipassana basics. Do you have that one? Did I not hand that out? Ah, here it is. That's why. Everybody take one of these. Okay. Now, actually, we've already gone through this because our meditation for the last two sessions have been the follow breath technique. So we'll just kind of read through these points, and maybe they'll just bring some additional fine-tuning of it. But today what we want to do, and next session, is actually try the centering prayer technique. So when we get to the end of this session, we're going to talk about centering prayer next, and then we will actually practice it. How close are we to everyone having a sheet? Close, huh?
Coming the other way. Coming the other way.
All right, did we run out?
Perfect.
Oh, look at that. I knew it, see.
Here, there it is.
I don't have my glasses.
Give that to her.
Okay.
Why don't you read it somewhere?
Okay, so not to get caught up in the Sanskrit at all, anapanasati means mindful breath. It just means to be mindful of your breath. Vipassana, another Sanskrit word, it really means to come and see, or more literally, to come inside and see. So we're going to follow the breath in order to be able to be internally aware. You know, that's really what those two words are coming down to. So you're going to focus your attention on the cool air entering your nostrils as you inhale, and then you're going to focus on the warm air leaving your nostrils as you exhale. So you're just going to focus on the cool and the warm sensations. You're going to allow yourself to become absorbed in the sensations. And when your mind wanders off into thoughts or images, or you have other body sensations, you simply notice them and use them as a reminder to go back to the breath focus. That's so important. So even as you get distracted, you don't look at it as a frustration because you've been distracted. It's just a reminder. It's an opportunity to come back to breath, to come back to the sacred word, to come back to the centered place. And so it just becomes another chance to practice the technique. That way you can stay away from any new frustrations, which are a new thing you're going to have to step away from, right? As you exhale, let your body relax and soften into the exhale. Focus continually on the breath. Don't try to control the breath. That's important. Just let it be whatever it is. Just notice it and lean into it. As additional thoughts, images, and feelings arise, simply return again and again to the breath. It does not matter how many times you have to repeat the returning to the breath. This is gradually training your mind to focus with clarity and concentration on the breath relaxation. At this time in your training, you do not need to practice anything else, just enjoy. Okay? So, again, don't get frustrated. You know, you're not doing it wrong. It's just going to be difficult, all right? And just remember that. Now, the advantage that following the breath has over centering prayer, especially at the beginning, is that it's continuous. It's kind of like Jim's mantra. That helped him because it was continuous, the saying of the word or the Jesus prayer. The breath is continuous. In centering prayer, it's going to be different. It's going to be intermittent because we're going to choose a sacred word and we're going to say it and allow it to displace our thinking, and then we're just going to be until we realize that we have drifted off, and then we're going to say the sacred word again. So centering prayer is not a mantra. We're not constantly saying it, and we're not following the breath. Now, the advantage, though, is that you have these intervals between your saying of the sacred word that is just open. It's just there. You're not focused on anything. And that's really what we're trying to achieve, is just those intervals, okay? So let's read a little bit about centering prayer basics, and then we can talk about it a little bit more, and then we'll try it. Choose a sacred word as a symbol of your intention to consent to God's presence and action within. Now, the sacred word is not sacred because of its inherent meaning, think cactus here, but because of the meaning we give it as the expression of our intention and our consent. It can be anything suitable. God, Jesus, amen, love, peace, mercy, listen, let go, silence, stillness, faith, trust, yes, cactus. All right? But here's the thing. Make sure that whatever word you choose isn't really loaded emotionally for you. You know, you don't want to choose maybe a child's name of which there's some emotional tension. You want it to be kind of neutral for you, or at least positive for you, but not real emotionally laden. So something that you can say and lay down kind of dispassionately. But remember, it can be anything, and it can change, but not during the session. So whatever you start the session with, keep that, because if you change the word, now you're off to the races again, and mind will just run with that one, right? Having chosen a sacred word, we do not change it. Oh, that's what they're saying right now. We do not change it during the prayer period because that would be to start thinking again. Sitting comfortably and with eyes closed, settle briefly and silently introduce the sacred word as a symbol of your consent to God's presence and action within. Introduce the sacred word inwardly, as gently as laying a feather on a piece of absorbent cotton. Okay, so there's an image for you. Remember, this is not going to be serenity now. It's not like that. We're not trying to grab this thing. We're not trying to force it in and force everything out. We're not wishing our thoughts into the cornfield. We are just using this word as just this symbol of our intention to return. Here's the best image that I have for it. You've all sat around a pool or maybe a very still body of water that has a film of dirt over it. Okay? Have you ever dropped a rock into that? What happens as the ripples go out? The dirt goes out with it, and there's a circle of clear water as the ripples go out. And then if you just sit for a while, what happens? It closes slowly back up again. All right? So this is exactly what's happening kind of on the surface of our mind. It's covered over with a film of all this thinking and all this activity. We lay down the sacred word like dropping the rock, and it just opens up, you know, just a clear space for us. Eventually it'll close back down again, and when it does, and you realize it has closed back, and you're thinking again, you lay the sacred word down again and clear your space. Okay? And this goes for anything. Remember, a thought for us, for our purposes, is anything that brings our attention to a focus. It can be a sound, it can be the song that's playing in your head, it can be the laundry list and the chatter that's going on, it can be an itch on your leg, it can be anything that draws your attention to a focus. All those things that are going on, if they're not drawing your attention to a focus, you don't have to worry about them, right? Let's say we're having this conversation in a restaurant, and we're talking across the table, and we're aware of the music that's coming from the ceiling. We're aware of all the hum of all the other conversations going on around us, all the silverware clinking and glasses and all that stuff going on. But it doesn't break our eye contact, and it doesn't break our concentration. We're aware of everything around us, but we're here just talking to the person that we're with. Familiar, right? Until the waiter drops a tray of dishes, and then everybody looks and they applaud, and you do that. Okay. Or another image is you're having this conversation on a second floor apartment with the window open, and you're aware of all the street sounds. And that's in the background, and you're having your conversation until someone fender bends out there, and then you're running to the window to see what's going on. It's going to be like that inside your head. You're going to be aware of your body sensations. You're going to be aware of everything going around you, and even aware of maybe some chatter in your head. But if you don't focus on it, if you keep the conversation going with your seatmate, your partner, then you're still in the game. It's fine. Don't think that it's going to be completely silent in there, because it's probably not going to be. And you're still going to be aware of where you are in the world and in your room or wherever it is that you are doing this thing. That's okay. So just remember, as long as you haven't brought your thoughts to a focus and you're thinking about them, you can be aware of them. Thomas Keating uses the sitting by the bank of the river and you're aware of debris going down the stream. As long as you just let it go and float by you, you're fine. But as soon as you pick out one and start looking at it and following it down, now you've lost the thread, and you need to say your sacred word again. The centering prayer is actually a modern adaptation out of the 70s, where Thomas Keating and Basil Paddington, a couple of Cistercian monks, Trappists, updated and kind of modified the ancient hesychastic Christian tradition of prayer, which was just silent prayer of the heart. And so you can see that it has a different tone to it, just as we're reading these points, than the Vipassana does. When engaged with your thoughts, return ever so gently to the sacred word. Thoughts is an umbrella term for every perception, including sense perceptions, feelings, images, memories, plans, reflections, concepts, commentaries, and spiritual experiences. At the end of the prayer period, remain in silence with eyes closed for a couple of minutes. A minimum time for this prayer is 20 minutes. 2 periods are recommended each day, one first in the morning and the other in the afternoon or early evening. The end of the prayer period can be indicated by a timer, which does not have an audible ticking or loud sound when it goes off. The timer is really essential. How can you rest in God if you're wondering when your time is up? A little digital timer that counts down from a set time and that emits a soft tone or a beep sets you free from thinking about time when the goal is not to think at all. And of course, there are all sorts of meditation timer apps that you can get for your phone, or you can just use your phone's timer as well. So, with the few minutes that we've got left, let's try it, shall we? So the first step is to choose your sacred word. What is your sacred word going to be? Have you got one? Okay. So we're going to go through the same opening. And, feel free, especially when I start in the morning, I usually start with a thought prayer. I ask God for help, quiet my mind, Lord. I want to connect with you. Whatever it occurs to you to say, just kind of start with the thoughts that kind of bring you in and remind you of your purpose for doing this, and then relax into your position, your posture, and then begin by saying the sacred word. So, tonight, whatever you want to start with is great in terms of a thought prayer, asking God for His guidance. And then close your eyes with your feet flat on the floor. Remember, we don't want to cross legs or do anything that's going to cut off circulation. Some of you might want to do it in a cross-legged position. If you can do that comfortably, that's great. Back straight, your head balanced. So important for your head to be balanced and not, falling forward or leaning back against anything that would allow you to be able to go to sleep. So hands just comfortably in your lap, maybe palms upturned, one inside the other in a classic position. And when you're settled, then take your cleansing breath. And that's a slow inhale to the count of 3, hold for the count of 3, and then slowly exhale. Go ahead and take a cleansing breath. Another cleansing breath. It's good to do your body scan, imagining a bar of laser light that is shining first at the top of your head and slowly moving down your body. Wherever it touches, relax. So at the top of your head, relax your scalp. Down your forehead and eyebrows, relax. Around your eyes, your cheeks, just relax your face. Moving down your neck, notice if your head is balanced or are you straining to support it. And just let it feel perched on top of your shoulders and relax. Shoulders, let them drop. Notice how much tension is sitting there. Down your arms, hands, all the way down to your feet. Just feel yourself sink into the chair. Now introduce your sacred word. Just lay it softly in your consciousness and begin. Ready, open your eyes. So Chris, how'd you do this time? He was a star last time for his first time.
Not as good this time, actually.
Really?
Yeah, it's last time, each time I wandered, I was able to come back pretty quick, and this time, I don't think I wandered as many times, but each time was longer than, like it took me a little longer to kind of get back to it.
Do you think it was the following the breath easier for you than the sacred word, or is it just it is?
I think it was,
That's great to know.
actually.
So start there and see if that kind of smooths it out. Yeah. So anyone else?
I think I heard the voice of God there. It said, John's here with the food.
You were wandering, my friend.
That wasn't God, that was the other enemy.
Yes, go ahead.
Were you with Paul?
Question.
Okay, so if you ever power nap, you know how you don't go into deep sleep, but you do go to a place of kind of lack of awareness. So when you do kind of come back, you weren't really sleeping, but you also weren't present the whole time. So that's not this, right?
It's not this, but you're actually going to the same brainwave state because you're going down into the alpha state,
Okay.
but you're staying aware and alert at the same time. In a power nap, you're actually going not into the deeper stages of sleep, but you are losing your awareness in the sleep. And so, yeah, if you were on an EKG, it may look the same. In fact, there's some Tibetan monks, these guys are amazing. They can go all the way down into theta and delta, in their meditative practice, which is way down deep. But so yeah, you're going to the same level of brain activity, but you're staying alert and aware at the same time. So that would be the difference between the two. And if you want to use this to go to sleep, just let yourself go. But you can use the same technique, but laying in bed, but here.